Hey everyone, welcome back! Limbo returns once again. This build is just so fun, infinitely scaling too, and there are a couple of options on how to run a Bakudan Limbo today. Whether it be deciding what slot gets the helmet, how you mod Limbo, and what support weapons you bring along, there's plenty of customization available. This is a video featuring Sobek with Terrify and Limbo's potent crowd control and damage amp mechanics. Speaking of Sobek, when do we get a Sobek Wraith or Kuva Sobek DE? It's been a very long time, and I think Sobek is due for a new coat of paint that isn't entirely reliant on acid shells. Yes, this is an acid shell build today. I originally wondered why I couldn't find any recent Limbo Terrify builds since the Veilbreaker update, and when theory crafting, I realized it was really hard to balance this kit in a way to make Terrify work. But don't worry, we did the work already, so feel free to try this build out today. Acid Shells. This is Sobek's personal augment that deals % HP damage and a massive AoE based on the enemy killed. Kills triggered by this mod can re-trigger the mod, meaning you can chain kill an entire room if the right conditions line up. 15 meters is a massive radius, but it does have linear damage fall off up to 100% at the edge of it. There are other mods in this family for other weapons, such as Magnetic Shells for Tenna Detron, Vulcan Blitz for Jat Katag, Entropy Detonation for the Prisma Obex, etc. But Acid Shell is by far the strongest. This is due to having the highest AoE radius when the effect procs and still having a very high % HP based damage, making the chain killing potential the highest. The % HP damage for all of these mods are blast though. Only the flat 450 damage is corrosive, and it means the % HP damage sucks against armor and has reduced efficiency against shields. Previously, Saren was the best candidate because her Toxin Lash both duplicated the Acid Shell explosion for more damage and also applied the scaling Toxin dot afterwards. So even things that didn't die instantly would still trigger more explosions when the dot killed them. Garuda was another popular candidate, as well as any frame that could full strip armor. With the advent of Veilbreaker though, armor strip changes meant all ability-based strips became additive, as well as some options, most notably Terrify, being buffed. It now only needs 167 strength instead of 500 to fully strip enemies. The main drawback of Terrify is the extreme energy cost per cast and forcing enemies to run away unless you use the augment. Limbo solves both of these problems, while also being an extremely safe option, which is something that Saren lacks. Saren survives by killing everything faster than they can kill her, whereas Limbo is a master of the battlefield to fight enemies on his own terms. Limbo doesn't need creeping Terrify because stasis already freezes enemies in the rift, saving a slot. Limbo also benefits from being in the rift by passively restoring energy to offset Terrify's cast cost. Being in the Rift also allows you to benefit from Rift Torrent, a massive base damage buff that allows Sobek to always have sufficient damage scaling to kill even without weapon arcanes in play, and once combined with Terrify, infinite scaling to level cap since everything will be armor stripped as well. And Eximi Units? Remember, they cannot shoot you in the Rift. Only their abilities hit cross-plane. You can either kill them directly with a massive Rift Torrent boosted damage of your Sobek, or just dodge their obvious ability cues. Essentially, they do not pose a significant threat to this Limbo setup. For Nullifiers, we have an alternative version I will show you that replaces Cataclysm with Terrify instead of Banish. Let's look at that Limbo build. Prime sure-footed belongs in this Excellus slot, but polarity problems. This specific Limbo is meant to be used with Matter Eye to reach enough strength for full strip. Sling Strength grants plus 40% ability strength for 20 seconds, and Transference activates Power Transfer for plus 50% cast speed as well. Therefore, this build reaches 144 ability strength and plus 100% cast speed with Natural Talent. The normal strength requirement to full strip is 167 for Terrify. Corrosive Projection cuts this down to 137. Now, why didn't I use Growing Power? This build doesn't try to prime enemies in advance, and if Rift Torrent is in play, it will one-shot instantly. You don't need more strength for that ability. So generally, you will be activating Terrify without having activated Growing Power. For ease of use, we stuck with Corrosive Projection. If you wanted a bigger energy bank and don't intend to bring this into Endurance, you can drop Rift Torrent for Prime Flow in case you screw up the cast rotation. Though this build is balanced to not run out of energy if you run the rotations right. Energize keeps the bank topped up, and tempo is really important to make up for Sobek's horrible base fire rate. Overextended is only rank 3 to make sure we pass that 137% strength mark to full strip, and 205 range alongside stretch still results in a 32.8 meter radius cataclysm. Streamline ensures your energy economy remains intact while preserving 155 duration. This is important for stasis to last as long as possible without being annoying to recast. I would have wanted this to reach 200 so that stasis lasts at least 30 seconds, but this build couldn't do it. Alternatively, you could drop Rift Torrent for Augur Message. Rolling Guard lets you safely go in and out of Rift, as well as removing pesky status effects inflicted by Eximi Units. This is the Grineer version we'll be running today. If you wanted to use this against Corrupted, which also have armor but can have Nullifiers, we just need to make a slight adjustment. Just keep in mind for Corpus, you would run Roar since they don't have armor to start with, and Roar multiplies Acid Shell explosion damage as well. So for the Corrupted faction, when you think Nullifiers are present, the only thing that changes is dropping Overextended for Augur Message. Why? Because for the second build, we instead keep Banish and Subsume off Cataclysm for Terrify. This way we can cherry pick which units get rifted and avoid our Cataclysm getting popped by Nullifiers. We still have Rolling Guard to get in and out of the rift safely, but not running Overextended means we already have 144 strength to full strip with Corrosive Projection at all times. This frees up your focus school to be whatever you want, whether Zenric for better energy or Uneru or Madurai for easier self-res if Limbo somehow downs. The range loss is negligible because Banish has absurd base range at 35 meters and you can point cast out to 51 meters on this build. Power transfer from Madurai for the cast speed isn't as important since we still have natural talent on the build, and Banish is much faster to cast than Cataclysm. Rift Surge has an AoE of 36.25 meters at 145 range, which is also enough. We only really needed big range earlier for Cataclysm itself. The buff duration pushes stasis to 27 seconds, which is even comfier than build 1. Prime Sure-Footed remains in the X list just like before, and Arcanes are also the same, energized without flow to manage the cheaper economy, as Banish is significantly cheaper to cast than Cataclysm, and Arcane Tempo to boost Sobek's abysmal fire rate. What's next? The quintessential Sobek build, of course. It's rather simple. Raw viral, because not only is this a pellet-based shotgun and likely to proc at least one viral to make killing your main enemy easier, but the viral damage itself also has a damage multiplier against flesh, which is perfect for dealing with fully stripped enemies, since armor isn't there to reduce our total damage. I've combined this with Seeking Fury so that shooting into crowds makes it much more likely you'll shoot down several enemies at once, which will trigger multiple acid shell chain explosions much more easily. 1.2 meter punch through is enough to hit 3 humanoid enemies in a line or 2 quadrupeds. Shotgun Barrage is mandatory to boost the fire rate of this weapon. I've actually triple stacked reload speed on this weapon, namely Seeking Fury instead of Seeking Force, Chilling Reload, and Primary Merciless to cut the original 2.7 seconds reload down to just 1.46 seconds. If you want even more raw damage on this build, you can drop Chilling Reload for Prime Chilling Grasp. Just keep in mind, reload time will go up to 1.86 seconds. I usually try to push for reloads within, well, 1 to 1.5 seconds, when possible to keep a weapon comfortable. Obviously, outliers like the Trumna or Queller can't reach these, but Sobek is one of the ones that can. I'd rather focus on the quality of life because the damage problem, which is only relevant for endurance, can easily be solved by just casting Rift Horn as recommended on the Limbo build himself. Galvanized Savvy works additively on this weapon, but it's still nice to have for if you don't have Rift Torn active, as well as being our sole source of status chance on the build. Primed Cleanse is actually very important because it scales up the damage of the AoE explosion itself as well, and is one of the very few ways to do so. This makes it so killing just 2 similar enemies of the same kind will be enough to nuke the area, instead of needing 3 enemies. It also obviously makes it easier to kill said initial enemies, and then of course, our Acid Shell mod itself. Kills triggered by this mod will proc Primary Merciless, so it's extremely easy to stay at 10 plus buff stacks on Merciless. Combining this with Rift Torn allows the weapon to reach 1000% base damage scaling extremely easily. No full stripped enemy can survive against that barrage for long. Epitaphis is literally just here as an Augur stat stick holder if you want a shield gate, so that's 2 Augur mods. Nothing else really matters here, so I'm skipping over this. For melees today, bring a crit stick Za like this one with the Exodia Contagion built for corrosive, since you cannot strip Acolyte armor with Terrify, then blow them up with it. If you don't have a ribbon, I would advise running an attack speed mod here like Prime Fury to throw contagions faster. Everything will be time stopped around you for an epic 1v1 duel against the Acolyte while you're buffed by Rift Torrent. Pet, basic Panzer build. It's only there to spread viral with Quill since you aren't priming yourself. It helps to buff the Acid Shell AoE since we aren't actually priming the other enemies around manually either. Martyr keeps you alive if you screw up, Devolution for infinite cat lives, Synset yada yada. Honestly, it's just the same Panzer build I always run that fits all situations. It honestly isn't really important for this loadout since Limbo doesn't care, so feel free to just copy it if you want. DPS rotation, make sure to have stasis up at all times. Build 1 just goes and casts Cataclysm wherever you want. You can cast Terrify before or after this based on if your shield breaks. Order doesn't matter as long as you survive, since everything freezes once Cataclysm is up. Once they're stripped, shoot them and watch the fireworks ensue. Then go find the next group of enemies and cast Cataclysm and Terrify on them again. Whenever stasis expires, refresh it. Doing endurance? Just cast Rift Surge before you shoot an enemy to make sure they die quickly. The absurd damage scaling will blow them up instantly and trigger acid shells. Build 2 functions quite similar. Make sure stasis is once again always active. Cast Terrify is needed to survive. Otherwise, spam your banish towards enemies, go into Rift mode, and blow them up with Sobek. It's that simple. Endurance just means once again, you just cast Rift Torrent before shooting. You can also use Rolling Guard to get in and out of Rift mode safely as needed, or just wipe status effects or force shield gating. Eximi Units should be easy to blow up and they can't shoot you back. Just watch out for their abilities. That's what Rolling Guard and your hyper boosted Rift Torrent damage is for. Cheers. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the new augments and the Veilbreaker updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.